So thanks everyone for showing up today. James and I are happy to be here. We're going to talk to you about a division of SAS. I hope you know what SAS is, our software package. But we're going to talk to you about our division, which is the Global Academics Program, and everything we do is free. No cost to universities at all. And so we're going to hopefully show you how you can use the free resources that we have and free software that we have to help you teach the statistics. And before we go any further, I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Tom Grant. I'll post my email in the chat window a little bit later on. I've been with SAS for 21 years. I was a consultant for SAS for about 17 years and then moved over to our education division and now in the global academics program. I tell everybody I have the best job in the world. When we're not in a pandemic, I get to travel around to universities and help students and faculty learn about SAS or learn about statistics or machine learning or something like that. So I get to visit all these wonderful campuses. And again, everything we do is free. So there's really no reason for us not to go out to universities. We do that. We were doing that before the pandemic quite a bit. I'll let James introduce himself.
Thanks, Tom. So my name is James Harroun. I've been working at SAS probably about 7 years. I'm the global software lead. So any of the software we'll be demonstrating today, I help kind of close the loop from academic needs to how we can stand it up and make it cloud deliverable. That's one of the big challenges we've had over the past year and a half, is how do we get educators and students hands on our software and learning materials. And like Tom was saying, everything is free, no cost. All you need is really an academic email address to access any of the learning materials we'll be showing today. We'll make certain to drop all of the links in the chat. There are just a couple to keep in mind. And really what we're trying to do is make certain that you have what you need to succeed in the classroom, whether that be a cloud-based software platform for inferential or even going into machine learning, along with multimedia resources for you to be able to close the loop, because we know a lot of times we stand in front of a classroom or we give somebody access to a textbook, and that's sometimes not enough to really get them engaged or help them understand a lot of concepts, especially when they're in the beginning of their learning journey. And that's one of the things we want to talk about today, right, Tom? Is we want to talk about what we offer to you that you can leverage in the classroom that's absolutely free, okay? And one of the things I think is, how do you close the loop? How do you engage your students with multimedia content? So we'll take you through some of the learning assets we've got that can help you point your students to additional learning materials that can augment what you're teaching in the classroom. And we'll also give them a great understanding of how a lot of concepts and statistics are connected to one another, right?
Yeah.
Tom and I'm sorry, Tom.
Yeah, so these are really supplemental to maybe what you're doing already. So I know, I teach at a small university here in Virginia, also as an adjunct faculty member. I teach the basic statistics 101 class. And so the way I use the SAS resources, not only the software, but we'll show you some what we call e-learning, where I can explain things one way to the class, but then I'll have them go out and watch the videos from SAS, kind of explain maybe in a different way. And so hopefully hearing it from me and from somebody else will give them a better understanding of the concept I'm trying to teach.
Great. So let's kick it off and let's talk a little bit about what we offer. So for today, Tom, would you like to go through our goals for today?
Yeah, so to explain a little bit about the U.S. Global Academic Program, we have what's called the Academic Hub, which is a one-stop shop for all the free SAS resources, where you go to get to, you and your students would go to get e-learning and all other resources that are available to educators. And then we'll talk about our free software platforms. These are full commercial versions of SAS that cost students and faculty and basically anybody that's wanting to learn SAS or learn statistics. These are free platforms. Again, all you need is a SAS profile and an internet connection basically to access these platforms. And then we'll explain maybe how to incorporate some of these multimedia resources to support things like if you're doing t-test or ANOVA analysis or regression, you don't have to go through the full SAS course. You can just pick and choose the topics that you wanted to maybe include, and then there's videos and examples and sample data to use for those. And then hopefully we'll leave 5 minutes at the end to answer any questions you might have. So this is kind of our mantra here in the Global Academic Program is we support you anyway. I put our email addresses in, and seriously, if you ever have a problem with SAS or you're using SAS software or going through one of the examples on the e-learning and you have a question, I tell this to students and faculty, don't struggle with it. Email James or I, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions really fast. But if you stump us and we don't know the answer, there's a whole team of SAS R&D folks that are out there working on the latest algorithms that we can reach out to. So really, our job is to support you. You are our customers. You and your students are our customers, and we really want to make sure we provide that help to them.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to add to that is that we're still understanding how relevant SAS is in the career sphere. So giving your students a little bit of SAS skill while you're helping reinforce these concepts will help them in their journey.
Yeah, so we've got a link in here, and I'll post this out. And this is our academic hub, and this is fairly new to SAS. So SAS, previously, if you were looking for free software or free materials, you would have to go to the SAS.com site and kind of poke around, look for the academic resources. We've now got them all in one place where you can go, and this is basically the only caveat is that you do have to use your edu email address. But once you do that, you get instant access to these materials. And James will be showing an example of maybe a course in the academic hub a little bit later on. So for educators, there's a lot more resources. You have, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's all in one place where you go to this one spot on the academic hub, and you have access to all the resources.
And your students have access to all of the e-learning courses that you have access to as educators. So if you're able to enroll in an e-learning course, your students can take the exact same one. And I just want to let people know also we're having a refresh of this academic hub on the 7th of July. So if you've already registered, or if you've never registered, come back and see it on the 8th of July and try out the new content, because it's going to be regionalized based on our global support network.
So as educators, you also get access to our full teaching materials. So not only the e-learning course, which your students will have access to, but usually when we go out to universities, we're teaching full-length courses, which contain data, programs, course notes, PowerPoints. So you get access to the hundreds of courses that we teach. If you want to use any of that material, the PowerPoints, for example, if you want to incorporate them into your own lessons, you have the access. You can download the entire teaching kit. And really the power of the multimedia is we have these, we call them certification tracks that are one or more courses. For example, if you wanted to learn how to program in SAS, you would say getting started with SAS, SAS Certified Programmer. That's inside of that certification path are 2 courses, Programming 1 and Programming 2, and your students would be able to take those programmings. The courses in there keep track of the students, how they progress. So as you finish each little 4 or 5 minute video session, you'll get a little green check mark. It's saying, I've gone through this. And so the students can really, students and faculty really can do this in an asynchronous manner, spread out a course for as long as they would like. And the application actually keeps track of where they are in the course.
Right. And upon completion, if they complete the individual modules within each of the learning pathways, they get a digital badge that they can put in their social media or on their LinkedIn profile or use as verification that they have attained the skill. One thing I also want to point out is that we have additional, if you can see where my pointer is hovering, if you look at these 2 pathways, these really give your students access to machine learning and advanced analytics. So if inferential and traditional statistics are not what your students are learning, we have another platform that also gets them into visualization, predictive modeling, artificial intelligence, and machine learning as well. So we have all types of content that can meet almost any audience in this domain.
And then software. So we've made it really easy for you to get software from SAS. So we have something called SAS On Demand for Academics. It's a cloud-based system. Really only requires that you have a SAS profile, which is a really easy setup. And actually in the academic hub, at the start of each course, if you don't already have access to SAS On Demand for Academics, there's, here's a link to enroll or to get access to this. So really any kind of computer, Linux, Mac, Windows computer, everything works. It's all browser based. You basically go to the login page, enter your information, and you're taken to a dashboard that allow you to launch SAS Studio. And again, James will give you a little presentation a little bit later, but that's all they need. They just need that internet connection to access the full power of SAS. And this is not some scaled down version of SAS. This is the full commercial site. It includes all the SAS modules, of course, the base programming language, SAS Stat, Graph, IML, but it also includes quality control, operations research, forecasting. So this is like if we had a commercial customer come in and say, I want everything you have, SAS, this is the version there.
Yeah, and this is the largest server-based implementation of SAS in the world. And we have a team dedicated to technical support and making certain that it is maintained and up and running. We give you pretty generous data upload capacity. So if you want to bring your own content, that's not a problem at all.
Yeah, and I just posted the link to register for SAS On Demand. It is a really easy process. It takes maybe less than 2 minutes for your students to get this access. And we've also got for people that are brand new to SAS or brand new to statistical software, we've got a great video out there that just talks about we'll walk the students through getting access and just kind of give you a navigational overview of SAS On Demand for Academics.
Right, and we're going to have some new YouTube content posted soon that will fit into a nurture campaign so that as users gain skill using SAS On Demand for Academics, we'll continue to provide them with additional learning content on our YouTube channel. And one of the things I really like, Tom, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this or not, but forgive me for jumping over you, is that if you're familiar with SAS from way back in the day, this SAS Studio interface that SAS On Demand for Academics provides doesn't require you to know how to code in SAS. If you can see on the left side of the screen, there's a lot of point and click support. So if you think your students would be more interested in answering a couple of questions that the point and click interface asks them, they can perform essentially the same analysis as if they were interested in hands-on keyboards coding from scratch.
Yeah, and I'll say that, it's pretty sophisticated analysis. So for some of the tasks, you can do some pretty sophisticated modeling, for example, just by pointing and clicking, and you don't have to learn to write SAS code if that's not the part of your course. I will say, my daughter is taking a data science course this summer through college, and she's struggling. They're not using SAS, but I would say with the area she's struggling in is actually the code that's being used, and I won't name any names, but it seems like she understands the concepts, but she gets hung up when the code, and so she tries to cut and paste from her, the examples her professor has given, but the data is not quite right, or something like this. This interface actually allows you to, go through and create graphs, do statistics, statistical tests without having to know the programming language at all.
Yeah, and for our introductory courses like Statistics 1, we give you 2 versions in the course notes. So if you want to teach from a coding perspective, you're free to do that. But we also have content that teaches you the same elements of the Statistics 1 content from a point and click and task-based approach, no coding needed. Moving on to the next slide. So we want to talk about how you close the loop in teaching, right? A lot of times you might have crickets when you're trying to illuminate somebody's mind, especially at the beginning when they're learning statistical concepts. So we want to walk you through a little use case where maybe you're trying to illuminate students who are new to statistics on t-test, ANOVA, regression, and we know they're kind of, different use cases that students might struggle with, and show how the multimedia resources in our e-learning can help answer some of those questions if they're not found in the text that you're teaching, okay? Now, one of the things we also want to highlight is that, like we saw in the On-Demand for Academics environment, the software is delivered through the cloud, so you're interacting through a web browser, but we have instructions in our course materials on how to get all the data into that environment and how to set up the course. And then we'll show where to find the video content that you can point your students to that they can watch on their own time, or you can even assign it as an after class or during class activity. And then talk about how you can also use the exercises in the course materials with your own data. So I'm going to take a step away from our slideshow. Anything you'd like to add before I go into the software, Tom?
No, so I'll just, from my own experience, I usually assign these videos as homework for the students. So I'll put them in Canvas, go out to lesson number 3, watch the 4 videos on, in this case, ANOVA analysis, and then we'll do the demo when they come back from class, and we'll kind of look at the steps in the demo, kind of go through the software and walk through what the analysis is telling us.
All right, so I'll take a break from the slideshow and I'll go to my web browser. You can see I'm at the Academic Hub. Choose your persona if you're an educator or student. The students do not get access to the full teaching kits, but if you're using those teaching kits in your coursework, we give you instructions on what you can share with them. So if you're an educator, you would sign up here and you'd come in to see our e-learning. And if you want to start some of these statistical analysis classes like Statistics 1, you would choose this learning pathway. And when you come into the learning pathway, we try to make it as easy as possible from the perspective of accessing the software, getting set up. What we recommend is a series of lessons that you can teach your students. So along this line, we start with getting your hands on the appropriate software, SAS On Demand for Academics, starting off with Statistics 1, and then maybe moving into a logistic regression course. Okay, but these are not the only courses that are available to you in e-learning. When you check out the Academic Hub, you'll see all of the e-learning courses available. So if I'm interested in starting off with the basics, Stat 1, When I launch the course, it gives me information broken out by lessons or chapters. So if I need a little bit of assistance getting the data and everything ready for starting the course, there's multimedia video content that shows me, and I think I've shared my audio. Let me know if you don't hear it when it starts.
To begin,
guide you
select Start or
exactly
select a topic from the Contents tab.
how to get going with the software. So giving you the appropriate course data setup instructions, where to go and get the data and get things going. And then as an educator, you can make certain you're pointing your students to the appropriate set of lessons, right? And Tom and I were talking is that when you're teaching statistics to people who are new in the domain, particularly understanding the difference between ANOVA and a regression model is really a good place to start. So to show you, when we go to this lesson 2, what is available from an ANOVA and regression standpoint, okay? Everything that's available
To
here,
begin,
you can point your way through. So if you want to start with the hypothesis for ANOVA, there's a way to point your students here to this section that gives them an overview
When you
of it.
test whether differences are statistically significant, you want to know whether the difference
Essentially what you're trying to prove or disprove when you're running an ANOVA analysis, right? Then move them into the idea of variability in ANOVA, coefficient of determination, F statistic, and so on, building the model, and then going through all of the post hoc tests. Right? So a lot of times this helps close the loop when they see visualizations, somebody narrating it to them, and then if they have additional questions, they can bring those questions back to the class. Okay, so from this content perspective, we find this really what a lot of younger or newer learners to the domain of statistics find very helpful as an additional support, and you don't have to create it. You just need to find the location in the e-learning that's appropriate, point them to the instructions and set up for the data, and so on. And this is kind of one half of, getting users interested in statistics using SAS. So I'll carry on and show a little bit about how this looks in the software. So in SAS On Demand for academics, you have a dashboard that shows you how much data you're allowed to upload and so on. You can see I'm about 81% full. This platform also allows you to create your own course and invite students, and there are instructions on the platform that will show you how you can create your own course, share data that's important to you or that you would like to have other learners follow along with, and invite them to the course. But to launch the software, you just click on the SAS Studio icon. That brings you into this interface. No installation or anything at all required. It just allows you to come in any platform as long as you're running an HTML5 compliant browser. And we provide you with all of the setup programs, the little scripts to tell you how to bring the data in. So these are 2 that help you bring in the data for this course. And then also all of the programs and solutions to any of the activities in the course are already included. So if somebody's interested in understanding, and we use the Ames housing data set in this course, how ANOVA works when you have a continuous response and a categorical explanatory variable, we guide them through all of the understanding of how you can build this model using an ANOVA and why ANOVA is appropriate, point them back to the multimedia content to show them that we have some sort of quality factor that's trying to identify the sale price of a house, right? And we're trying to understand, is there a difference across this heating quality factor in the average sale price of houses in this Ames housing data set? Okay, and in the course you get the example on how to do the code. Okay, also when you're using the SAS Studio interface in On Demand for academics, we have tasks over here on the left-hand side. So if you want to point your students not to the code to get started, but to tell them, you come under the tasks, find the linear model section. There's a task for one-way ANOVA. You just double click on one-way ANOVA. It gives them the option to choose the data set they would like to use. This is the Ames housing data set. And then you can explain to them, we're trying to explain variation across this quality control or quality condition of the heating in these houses. The sale price, right? Is there a difference in mean sales price based on some sort of categorical input variable? So you just define the two, and you can see immediately builds the code for them. And this is essentially the same code that you see in the course notes. So there's a start from scratch hands-on keyboard option, and then there's also this interactive task option. There are additional options as well, so that if you want to change your HOV test or comparison methods, or change the plots that you get in the output, you can just click your way through, right? Add diagnostics plots as a panel of plots. And once you've chosen your selections, you just click on the running person, runs the analysis for you, and all of your output is over on the right-hand side, right? And this is a great way to teach your students. And for me, there it is. A great way for you to teach your students, because then you can move back to the course materials that walks through also how to understand where to look in the results, right? Where to find your F statistic, variance, and also this diffogram to show, in fact, where the difference, you can reject the null hypothesis of no difference in mean comparison across these categorical variables. All right, I know we only have a couple of seconds left. Tom, anything you'd like to add before we go back to the slideshow?
Yeah, we got a comment. I wish this was there 20 years ago, and me too. Although I'm glad I learned how to program in SAS, this would have made my statistics classes where I had to learn how to program go a lot easier. Yeah, I just find this, most of my students are taking the class because it's required. Everybody at my college has to take a version of a statistics course, and they are no means do they want to learn a programming language. So I use the task exclusively when I'm teaching the class.
And they have changed my mind, right? I was raised in the era where we always coded from scratch, but this interface really helps facilitate. I'm going to switch back to the slideshow really quickly, just so that you can see our team, right? Here we are. Tom, would you like to speak about the makeup of our team and how we support higher ed?
Yeah, so we stay pretty busy. We're pretty small team. Usually if you want to contact us, you can just email academic@sas.com, or you can email James or I directly. So hopefully when we get out of this pandemic, we'll go back to traveling to universities and conducting workshops. So if you're interested, and maybe we have a great one-day course that basically walks through SAS Studio and using the task and all of that. We'd be happy to come out to your university to do that, or set up, if we're still in the non-travel mode, we can do that over Zoom for you. But really make it as painless as possible. So academic consulting, James and I are on the teaching side, and then we have program managers that basically divide the United States up into territories. So if you need anything else, we do things like SAS days, where we'll bring in our commercial customers to talk to your students, get them excited about maybe pursuing a degree and a career in analytics. So we bring in our SAS, we'll find out our SAS customers in your area and have them come in and talk about how they use analytics in their day-to-day jobs or in their industry. So it's not only teaching resources, we do try to provide the resources to kind of guide your students in a career path also.
Yeah, and closing the loop, that's what we're all about, not just providing access to the materials and the technology, but making certain that if there are additional things we can provide to you, we're helping you close the loop and illuminating minds in the classroom.
So Amy, can we stick around if there are any questions?
Joe had a question. Are students able to save their practice programs, et cetera, in the cloud?
Absolutely. So we give everybody 5 gigabytes of space to store their data, programs, output, anything they want to store there. And I can tell you, James is kind of the exception. He has 81% filled. I've probably got 15 different classes with data, and mine's about 20% filled. So unless you're downloading Twitter feeds, usually 5 gigabytes is quite a bit of space to store programs and data sets. And there's another question, can we import data from Excel? Absolutely. And actually, we have a point and click wizard for doing that. And so again, you don't have to write proc import code. You just basically double click on the Excel file. You would have to load the Excel file up into the cloud, but again, it's a one button, just upload the file, double click on that file, will open up a wizard and it'll guide you through loading the Excel file. Yeah.
Yeah, and also for people who use open source, I know a lot of them are using CSV files. We have the same facility for CSV. Just double click and it reads in your CSV.
Yeah, that was my question, and I was going to ask about that. I just want to tell you real quick that I used to have problems with that because it told me that it requires some patch with Microsoft to bring in Excel files.
So the Microsoft engine is included with SAS On Demand. So PC file formats is actually what it's called.
Okay.
But it's included.
Thank you.
Can the wizard stuff be turned off? So can you turn off the task? You can hide them, but you can hide the tasks so they don't appear as a tab. But you would actually have to have the students do that on their own. So you can, as an administrator, as an administrator, turn that off for students.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, James. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay, thank you. It was a real privilege to present.